morning. Welcome back to Daybreak, and it's now 18 minutes to 7 o'clock, and it's time to start with a conversation here on the latest in public affairs, including situation at different government agencies, but also what's going on in the political scene. And just to introduce the panel, we have Governor Francis KEMSA, the Governor of Nyandarua County. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much.
We have Senator Ledamo Lekina from Narok County. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
And Senator Mithika Linturi from Meru. Good morning and welcome back.
Good morning and thanks, Sam.
Right, and I want us to begin by quickly looking at what is in the papers before we can transition to what just happened to KEMSA last week. And on the front page of the Standard, you'll see Ruto woos Kalonzo as Raila storms city. It's eyes on 2022. The DP, in a response to Wiper leader, says he's ready to work with other aspirants. Then as ODM boss plans a major rally in Nairobi next month to declare his candidature for president. On the front page of the Daily Nation, revealed the Raila 150 billion shilling cash plan. The 6,000 shillings will be paid to families in need, not the youth, as earlier indicated. And of course, you will get the details of what Raila Odinga is proposing, but also he has said that on the 9th of December 2021 is when he'll be declaring his candidature for the 2022 general election. If he runs, then it will be something that has been a long way coming. We'll talk about these conversations later during this discussion, but before we do so, let's touch on something that happened at the Kenya Medical Supplies Authority last week, and it was the announcement by the KEMSA board chair that they were sending majority of the workers home to go and work from home as they focus on restructuring that organization. That will be for a period of 30 days. It has really caused a lot of heat from the ground and also from different leaders. Let's first listen to that declaration by KEMSA board chair Mary Mwadime.
The release of all staff to work from home is a procedural formality to facilitate the review of the organizational structure, and this will be undertaken expeditiously to ensure that the staff complement is fit for purpose and within the approved staff establishment levels. We want the operations to be seamless, so it has meant that we reach out to certain organizations to assist us in just making sure that we move ahead during this review period. So I think that answers your question, Wally. How many organizations? I think some of them are the ones that have been mentioned. You have mentioned NYS. How many? I don't have the numbers for now.
The work which we normally do here as the procurement, it involves documents, and those documents are here. And the documents, the public documents, and nobody is allowed to go with them out of this organization. So whatever we'll be working from home, maybe these are just a sack.
Earlier on, that was the board chair, Mary Mwadime. Of course, they're talking about some of the caretaker staff will come from the National Youth Service. And then you see there Anthony Chege, who is a procurement officer at KEMSA, saying that he fears that this could be a sack. A lot of reactions have come since that development. And this is what the senator said that afternoon.
Madam Speaker, the committee should also explain whether the State Corporation Advisory Committee, whether it made any recommendations to the President in regards to the reorganization, removal, or transfer of officers and staff of KEMSA, and if the board acted on its advice.
This is a cover-up of very powerful individuals and their families from being investigated for the fraud in KEMSA.
900 ordinary junior employees within KEMSA are being sacrificed at the altar of protection of powerful individuals within government and within KEMSA fraternity, Madam Speaker.
Kembi Gitura, who used to sit here, was given another job instead of answering questions.
Sacking 900 workers means that you are affecting 900 families.
All right, different senators there making their voice. And let me begin on this side. Senator Olekin, of course, it was such an interesting conversation that afternoon, and some of you said that this is just a ploy or a plot to cover up for the investigations that have been going on. But listening to the board chair, this is something that's been going on for quite a bit of time, including how they've managed the authority, and a new board brought on board to come up with new ways of doing business. How is this resting with you, and what actions have you taken since Thursday afternoon?
Sam, let me begin by saying that this is an illegal operation. It's an illegal move, and I will borrow the words of my colleague, Senator Mutula Kilonzo, to say that this is a cover-up, because we all know in this country that the people who are engaged in the scandal, the COVID-19 scandal, the corruption in KEMSA, were not the junior staff. The junior staff did not appear before any parliamentary committee to be asked specific questions. The board did appear. The board appeared, and both the National Assembly and the Senate, where I sit, and I have a lot of information on this matter because it was in my committee that I interviewed the former chairperson, Kembi Kitura. And when we went through the procedures, we saw the way they violated the rule of law. You know, we saw the way the ministry was involved. When you saw the PS coming there and issuing out different statements on how the transactions were being carried out, we saw the testimonies given by the senior procurement officers. We saw the testimonies given by the former MD of KEMSA. So it is really, really, really bad. And I think this is something that we cannot allow to happen, because what is happening now is that the poor Kenyans, you know, people with young families, people who have, you know, built their career in KEMSA, are now being sent home. And the plan is very simple, Sam, I can tell you. The plan is send them home for 30 days. During that 30 days, determine who is important and who is not important for information. Give them all of the 90, of the 900 staff, give them what we call a golden handshake, and literally send them all home and start afresh. How do you start afresh? Yet you've not gone after those people who are given billions of shillings in contracts, those people who are sent. What really pisses me off a lot, one of my pet peeves is that the president has been on the front line talking about not transferring corruption. But what is happening now is that you're actually transferring corruption. You're rewarding corruption from one entity to another entity.
How so?
Because Kembi is my very good friend, and we made peace from the fight that you saw in Parliament. But when you now fire all employees, but you reward the chairperson who was in charge of that body, when that body was cited for corruption activities, what does that mean? It means that you reward there are powerful people in this country, and there are those who are not powerful. In fact, what might happen now is that where Kembi has gone to, where he has gone to CAK, you will find people being fired there.
Is that fair to say that, knowing that Kembi Gitura has not been found guilty by any court?
He has not been found guilty. But in any civilized democratic nation, the people who are in charge are the ones who take responsibilities. We have countries
He's on record saying that the board just deals with policy, doesn't
Then if the board deals with policy,
procurement.
Let me ask you a very simple question. If the board deals with policy, how come the management was not involved in the action which was taken by the board last week? How come the letters were drafted by the board? The board is the one who drafted all those letters.
But the letters are signed by the acting chief executive officer, who I bet is...
Let me be very honest with you, and I'll tell you this, and I'm glad you're asking those questions. Everything was done by the board. Even the meeting which was held, because if the board was clear, they would have called everyone in one room. They didn't. They held a meeting on Zoom, and then immediately after they held a meeting on Zoom, they surrounded the place with police, and then they called the press for a press conference. If you're honest enough, let us separate fictions from facts. The board is the one which is in charge. The letters were drafted by using one computer by the board. We have details. You know, so the board is the one which unilaterally decided that we are sending everybody home. Even the acting MD is not safe.
Let's listen to Governor Kimemia here, because KEMSA has been responsible for, is it the procurement, warehousing and distribution of drugs and drugs, medical supplies to the counties.
Yes.
I don't know how well it's doing, and when this action is coming from the board now, is it too much of a prescription for the problem that is at KEMSA?
No, it is not. It is not. And I think what I need to say right from the start is they need to separate politics from reforms. because this is a reform agenda that we as COG have proposed for both the KEMSA and NHIF. Because you find that this KEMSA is a monopoly. It's supposed to be very efficient, very effective, very well resourced. But we have found that they have not been as efficient as they are supposed to be. And we recommended that part of the board membership should also include COG, because we have to buy drugs from KEMSA as a first stop. We can't go to the markets before we go to KEMSA. So you would expect this is a very efficient organization. I know we need to, when we began the reforms in the public service before I left for politics, we had the same problems, that people preempt the reforms and they anticipate the results of the reforms. I think we need to give it a chance. Let's restructure the organization. Let's reform it. Let's make it more effective, more efficient. Nothing stops prosecution of anybody who is supposed to be, because the facts are still there, documents are still there. But in terms of their own, looking at both the structures and the systems and the strategies that are there, and also looking at the staffing issues and the staffing norms. Are they properly staffed? And it doesn't mean that everybody or anybody will be sacked, because it is too early to indicate this. I'm sure there will be a consultancy team. Parliament can demand weekly reports on the reforms. The ultimate thing should be to make sure that KEMSA is efficient and effective, and that they can account for the monies that they accrue from the counties, and they are more efficient in terms of delivery of medicine, in terms of technology, empowering the counties to be, by fixing technologies in our warehousing, so that we can, before drugs are finished, they should be able to provide those drugs. I think that's what I would urge those of us who are politicians, not to mix reforms with the restructuring, or reforms or politics. We don't politicize a reform agenda, but let's give it a chance, because you still, before the implementation is done, ultimately Parliament can demand, and COG, we can demand to see what is happening. Are you fair? Are you victimizing people? Or are you improving this organization to become more efficient? But to start fighting it right from day one, I think that would be wrong. And we saw that in the civil service reform. Right. In 92, we saw it when we introduced the performance contracting. We are fought left and right and center. But today, everybody is enjoying performance contracting. So reforms are...
Governor, it's interesting that you say it doesn't mean that anyone will be fired. I'm just reading one of the letters that was issued to a staff member and received by themselves. By reason of the foregoing, and as recorded by the Employment Act, this letter serves as an official 1-month notice that your position may be affected and made redundant. During the 1-month period, the authorities board will, through its authorized officers, engage you in consultations and thereafter make an informed decision before authorizing any necessary changes to be implemented in the proposed restructuring. And actually, they said they'll be providing psychosocial support to some of this staff. So clearly, there will be some people affected. And I'm just wondering, with the aspiration to reform KEMSA, is the solution to sort of put everyone in a position of losing their jobs to bring in National Youth Service, and what comes at the end of this process?
I think the letter says may. It doesn't say shall, it says may. So that's what I'm saying. What is of public interest or national interest in Kenya is to have an effective and efficient and well-resourced KEMSA that accounts for the resources that they get. How that is done is what we need as also stakeholders to know. How will it be done? Will you victimize people? Have you done things in the past that defeat the national interest in terms of the way you have recruited people? Has it been a cash cow? Has it been a place where you just dump people there? So, and then of course you're able to see what is the best way of handling, because you have to have a human face in the way you handle people. So, and I think, and that I was involved in the civil service reform program. Fine, there are some pains that come for you to get gains. You need to agree. If there has been mess, there will be some pains. There were pains in the civil service, in the police reforms. You can't expect KEMSA to perform in this country and expect it to be inefficient. And you can't have the cake and eat it. Okay. But how we do it, the methodology of doing it, is what myself and my brother here should be concerned with.
Okay, Senator does not agree with you. I'll give you a chance. Let's first listen to Senator Linturi. And Senator, of course, when you listen to all this, I was looking at some numbers. I don't know where the senators got the number of 900 employees, because when we asked the board, they refused to give us the details. But there's an audit report of 2018-2019 that talks about 741 employees at the time, and the authorized establishment was 341, meaning there was an excess employment of 450 employees. When you have an organization dealing with this, and maybe there are so many other public institutions that have more employees than approved, how do you approach it, and how are you dealing with this news that so many people are likely to lose jobs in the wake of reforms?
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. And let me start by saying that, you know, we're in a country which is, at the moment, has no respect and due regard for the law, and especially for those that are in authority, like KEMSA and others that own the executive authority. And most of them have thought on deciding that the Constitution and the law is just a piece of paper and may not be able to understand the effect of failure to do what is illegal is likely to cost this country. Why am I saying this? With a lot of respect, you realize that even if one is to be sacked, there is that proper Administrative Action Act which requires each one of us, under Article 10 of the Constitution, at least to inform those people that are supposed to be affected by decisions that are being made by authority, to be informed in advance. Whenever you are making any decision that affects people, the people must be involved. The people must be told. I have no problem if the COG is the one that has caused the restructuring in KEMSA, but at least the people in KEMSA should have been told. But KEMSA must also understand the timing and the manner in which it's being done is really suspect.
What do you mean?
The timing and the manner is being suspect because, you know, I would excuse KEMSA. I and Lokina probably can think outside the box. Because from the explanation KEMSA, and by using his words, I would say he must be suffering some bit of hangovers from the civil service. Because, you know, he was the head of civil service in this country. And he's really trying to defend what KEMSA is doing. And he cannot be the one defending KEMSA, but being a governor elected with authority and power from the people, must always know that whenever...
But I thought his explanation is based on the challenges they are facing from...
I'm trying to qualify or to lay in basis of what I am saying, and why I'm making almost that conclusion. It's because when you heard Mheshimiwa Olekina speak, I and him sat in the committee that did the investigation of the front and the scandal at KEMSA. We are privy to a lot of information. By the way, what he has said is correct. KEMSA was being asked, give this order to so and so, letters come from the executive. Just like he said, the chairman was transferred. We have reports that were given by the controller and auditor in general, because as a committee, we had asked him to even to specifically audit the process of procurement and be able to give a report to the committee in terms of the loss that KEMSA had incurred. The Procurement Oversight Authority came before this committee and explained a few things. So when we say that there is every potential reason for us to believe that the government is doing all this for us cover-up, we have every reason to think that... But
Senator Olekina, let me ask you this. Do you believe there was a problem with the board that was at KEMSA at that time when you're doing the investigation?
Let me tell you. The board at that particular time and also its own problems. It has its own problems. And there is a mechanism under which, or by way, that you address some inefficiency and incompetence. So if a chair of a board has been found to oversee a scandal within a board, you don't reward him by taking somewhere else and think you'll perform better. The other Kenyans that can do it.
That board was replaced, and I'm looking at the letter that was sent to the employees, and it partly says...
So I think, you know, I have a lot of respect for this station. And if we take time to come here so that at least we are able to have a channel and opportunity to tell Kenyans and to educate each other and to learn from one another. So if you become defensive, because we are trying to explain, whatever is being happening is happening as a cover-up, because we have every reasons to believe that.
Senator, I have heard your explanations, all of you, and I'm now looking at taking the conversation forward. There's no defense here.
But I'm not finished. I
have no brief of anyone here. The letter says, the authority has in recent past been under intense scrutiny over mismanagement and lack of accountability, which has led to a standoff with the USAID over distribution of HIV drugs. And then they also quote that KEMSA has been plagued by the scandal revolving around its role with respect to the preparedness and response to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the issues that you are here talking about.
That is the truth. We went to Naivas, we went to Kilifi.
Yes.
And one of the people who testified in Kilifi, because I remember, brought out the issue of HIV drugs being sold or being given out when we are just exactly donors. It's not that I do not agree, but what I am saying...
So what I'm asking is, what is your suggested solution to this? Because the board has been reorganized. There's a new board in place.
I have no problem with the reorganization.
Most of those senior officials, including the former CEO and the former director of procurement, are on suspension. So what is the next step to reforming that institution in your view?
Chair, with tremendous respect, if you want to reform an institution, you will deal with the policymaker and the implementers, the immediate senior management implementers of policy. What does that guy in the warehouse have to do with the reforms? Yeah? So I'm just arguing a case for very small people that are oftenly not considered, and because they are voiceless. That's what I am saying.
That's what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman.
Respond to
Chairman, that's what I'm saying, Mr. Chairman. We separate politics from the reforms of an institution. Because nobody, we are agreeing, yes, there is a problem.
Right.
You know, there's a problem. Yes, the board came, they were sacked, you know, they were removed. There's a problem in KEMSA in terms of managing supply of drugs, procurement, and so on. The whole value chain, there's a problem. So we must fix the problem. So the question is, how do you fix it? It's not by victimizing anybody, but it is by looking at the systems and the strategies and the structures that are there, and then, of course, the values of that institution and the staffing of that institution. If we don't do that, then we'll be just talking politics. There's the issue of time. I'm not defending anybody. We respect the Constitution, we respect the law. I'm not private to what is happening. I've not even seen the documents of reforms. I'm only reacting to what I'm seeing in the media and what I know as from COG. And that's why we insist we should also be part of it, even those reforms. If we need to be given periodic reports on what is happening in the reforms, that is okay. If in the end, final analysis, if there are things that we don't like as a COG or as Senate and work very closely, then we can be able to have a national discussion with the national government and see what is the best way of handling, the consequences.
Can I just try to demystify
this? Senator Olekina, and as you respond to that, tell me also what to do with an institution that has more staff than approved.
Okay, I will let you know.
1 minute.
Okay, but my colleague...
Yeah, because I want I need to take it over from there, please. It's because I remember Mheshimiwa Olekina, when this matter was before a committee, the chair of COG was Oparanya. And if there is supposed to be any reform, first of all, we must entertain legal reforms. If there are any statutory problems with the law, first of all, address those laws, because we'll do nothing. And I've raised this so that Olekina pick it up from there. Because the COG, this is the only institution where the Council of Governors buys drugs and the probability of sending money there for another to be withdrawn through another different cause cannot really happen because of the government systems. Oparanya, when Oparanya appeared before the committee, and you remember, and that time I saw them with a photograph saying that they had been directed, and I was discussing with the head of state that particular time on how they can buy or why they are bought. Some of them were trying to justify buying goons outside KEMSA, goons that were at KEMSA because they had issues with KEMSA. So even this restructuring process at KEMSA probably is instigated by the Council of Governors for other reasons. Take it over.
No, it is not from us. It is not from us.
Governor.
No, the reforms, he's giving the wrong information to the people. The reforms are not instigated by COG. It's most likely by the national government. As we have only made complaints that we are not getting efficiency, we we are not getting
So
effectiveness.
you didn't have any specific
We want that institution to be more efficient. How they do it is a business.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Please don't give out your time again.
No. Let me put it this way. I'm glad that His Excellency the Governor here has said, let us separate politics from reforms. Number one, the Governor has been a public servant for many years. He knows that there are laws that governs how states cooperate. There is a State Corporations Act which is very clear. In fact, if you read Section 27, it talks about the State Corporations Advisory Committee, which shall advise the President on reforms that needs to be taken. Whether there is restructuring, whether there is redundancy, it is this State Corporations Advisory Committee that shall advise the President. The question that I ask, which is what we want answers, is that was there any activities carried out by the State Corporations Advisory Committee so that it led to the reforms which are coming up, purported reforms from KEMSA? Number one. Number two, the governor is confused here because the governor is saying that they made complaints about how they procure drugs and services from KEMSA, and they want those reforms to come from KEMSA. KEMSA cannot give you those reforms, Mr. Governor. Those reforms will come through the amendment of the KEMSA Act, because the KEMSA Act is the one that restricts all government procurements in terms of medicine to KEMSA. So if the COG want reforms, they want to be able to purchase drugs directly from other companies, they need to come to Parliament. They need to convince both the National Assembly and the Senate on the need to amend this act. Number three, there was an advisory by the President. People said it was a directive by the President. The President is not powerful. He's not more powerful than an act of Parliament. The President cannot suspend a law, neither can he suspend the Constitution. So it doesn't matter. Even if the President gives a directive and say, county governments now, you can buy drugs from elsewhere, if you dare do that, you will be the one to be crucified because there is a law. If the President wants that law to be suspended, he will come to Parliament. You know, he's got the majority side, you know, and then he will tell the majority side, amend this law so that let us allow Mr. Kimemia here to be able to buy medicine from someone else.
All right.
Let me just finalize this point, because this is a very important point.
And I also want to touch on what do you do with excess staff?
Say that again?
What do you do with excess staff?
We will,
more than approved.
You see, you cannot come now with a lame excuse that there is excess staff. What were you doing giving them pension? Employing them on a permanent basis? That is issue number one. What were you doing giving them contracts? And you need to remember, we have 47 county governments. Tell me, with 47 county governments, the KEMSA is the one which is supposed to provide drugs for all these 47 county governments. In fact, if you know what happens is that the Ministry of Health, you know, gets an order from KEMSA. They budget. They know that KEMSA will need about 3 or 4 billion. You know, so they allow them to spend that money to buy the drugs so that they can sell them. They need staff. Don't you dare tell me that you're going to hire me today, and then tomorrow you're going to come up and say that there's what? There's excess staff. So the person who hired me in the first place should be the one responsible. What were you doing hiring me? Was there an incompetent body in terms of the board which was giving directives on who should be hired? You know, so what is happening is illegal. And the only way we can be able to stop this is by us standing firm with the rule of law, the Constitution. We must stand, because all this nonsense they're talking about, SCAC, saying that we want to reform, that will not solve the corruption problem. There are billions of shillings. Kenyans, we know. This is because we investigated the matter. We issue recommendation. One of the recommendations that we gave was that the DPP, the DCI, should carry out investigation and look for a link between the companies that purchase the product with excessive prices, with the board and the former CEO. Now the former CEO is at home receiving half a salary. You are now telling me that instead of the DCI and the DPP, because they are the ones who are now sleeping on their jobs, instead of them picking the recommendation made by Parliament, even if they have not been adopted, your investigative process begin from the time where you know there's a rot somewhere. Take those recommendations, start doing your job. This DPP has not prosecuted.
And actually, Senator Olekina, on 26th of August 2020, the President directed that the investigating agencies
be done within 21 days. What is that?
Conclude. A report was taken from EACC to the DPP, and I believe it was on the 2nd of October 2020. The DPP wrote back to EACC, returning the files for more evidence.
What is more evidence?
It's been more than a year.
What is more evidence, Sam? Can I ask you a question? What is more evidence? We know that right now there are millions of PPEs, there are millions of whatever you call them, COVID-related material lying at KEMSA, which were bought at 900 shillings for a mask. Now the mask is at 30 shillings. Who bears that loss? It is not by the board coming in and actually following this trajectory of militarization, which is happening in this country, bringing in NYS, bringing in KDF. We have Kenyans.
All right. Senator Olekina, I want us to exit from this conversation. Part of the statement from KEMSA board said, and this is not defense, I'm just saying this because KEMSA is not here. This is what they said, that indeed, the board is grateful for the support provided by the Public Service Commission, State Corporations Advisory Committee, SCAC, Ministry of Health, Ministry of Public Service and Gender Affairs, KEMSA staff and management, among other stakeholders. So you're asking whether SCAC was involved in this. They are saying yes, but they don't give
the law. It does not give, that does not say, no, this, let's not mix, you know, oil and water, because it doesn't mix. The law does not say, give the KEMSA board advisory. The law, read the law. Take the State Corporations Act. You know, if they don't know, they should hire a lawyer who can be able to read for them. It says the president shall be advised on whether there's redundancy. These are people's lives you're joking with.
Okay. All right. Governor Kimemia, as we exit from this conversation, that president's directive allowing governors or county governments to procure without necessarily going through KEMSA, how did it go? And were you able to procure anything?
Let me first of all, there's something he has said, and I think it's good to clarify.
Okay.
We demanded review of the KEMSA Act and also the NHI. I know we are not discussing NHIF Act to make them as efficient as possible. That we did, and I'm sure Senator here is a private to that matter. And I want to also say we do not want to buy. COG is not keen on buying outside KEMSA. What we want KEMSA to be is to be more efficient and more effective, more accountable in the way they deliver services to us. Because currently they are not efficient, and that's what. But I'm not, because we are not party to the reforms that are going on now.
I think you just changed, because earlier on you said monopoly. You don't like.
No, it is. It is a monopoly, but so it should be more efficient. What we said is that it should be more efficient, should be more endowed, should even be able to give us credits when we don't have money. So that's what we are saying. But the other issue that we should be discussing is it possible for KEMSA to devolve? I mean, and these are part of the reforms that they should be looking at, so that even in the final analysis, you may not even need to sack anybody. Because once you have KEMSAs in the counties, then in the excess in Nairobi here can be offloaded to the counties, and but make it more efficient, and the way it does its business. That's why I'm saying let's wait for the results, the reforms. Then we can be able to critique it and see whether it's making sense or not, and then separate prosecutions from reforms. Because those who have committed crimes will have to face, the books of law. But the reforms to make the efficient more, the institution more effective, coming up with organizational structure, the staffing norms. Do you have access? Then what do you do with it? Government is big. When we reform.
So did you take advantage of the president's directive that you can procure outside?
No, this was mainly on the COVID-related materials, not on every. Because personally, we didn't have to buy anything outside KEMSA, because we were able to get our PPEs from, but it was largely on the PPEs where KEMSA could not get, masks and so on, that counties were able to buy.
All right. We have to take a short break here. The conversation on KEMSA continues. We'll come back and we'll be talking about matters politics. Time is moving, Senator. It's now 7:15, and we have so much to talk about. We'll be talking about the latest in the world of politics, the developments that are coming up, but still continue to share your views via 22422 and Twitter at Citizen TV Kenya at Sam Gituku. We're back shortly.